Hi everyone, we continue our journey of discovering Canadian produce. Now it's time to discover Canadian pork and seafood. I'm with Andre Huber of Huber's Butchery, and you're going to tell us about Canadian pork.
Yes,
One
I
of the
am.
best sellers, right, over at Huber's.
That's right, yes. So best sellers, of course, we have many different cuts as you see here. We have the collar, Singaporeans are very familiar. You can use to make char siu, some of the things. We have the loin, not so popular, but for the Canadian, because it's very nicely marbled, it's still very, very juicy.
Yeah, I guess Chinese people don't really like to use the loin much. It tends to get dry
It tends to get dry.
Yeah.
But of course with the Canadian pork, because there's nice marbling and there's a nice layer of fat on the top,
And what's this one?
and we have a very interesting cut. Not many people know of this, but it's basically the cap of the loin, right? It sits on top of the rib eye part of the pork. I can show you the whole piece, right? It looks a bit like a pork jowl sort of thing. Nice marbling running through it, a bit like the secreto from the Iberico. Nice fat on top.
How come we never seen this cut before?
This cut, if you have it from a normal pig and everything, it's not so nicely marbled and all this.
Okay.
They usually use it for trimming, right? They use it to make sausages and all this.
Yeah.
But because the Canadian pork, they grow it older, the meat is more marbled.
You can see that I can actually use this to make a very nice juicy char siu.
Yes,
I mean,
you can.
it looks
Yeah, I know
amazing.
normally you like to use the jowl, but this
Yeah.
is really something
Yeah.
different and
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
For Huber's Butchery, I think we are one of the few places to actually carry Canadian pork. And why Canadian pork is because in Singapore we allow chilled pork from 3 countries, Indonesia and Australia, which is what you mostly see in the supermarkets. But also from Canada, we air flown the Canadian pork and it's been doing well. Our customers like it. So with the Canadian pork, with using Dr. Leslie's Sio Ba method of the Chinese style of Sio Ba, what you will do is you'll char the skin outside and then you'll scrape it off, right? Because it gets burned, you scrape it off and you end up with a thinner layer of skin that actually remains very, very crispy.
Yeah, I see it's a lot more thicker than local fresh pork that I usually get from the market
That's
because
right.
of the age of the pig.
That's right, because of the age, they
Okay.
grow it to a much older age.
Yeah.
And because of that, I mean, it's not so commercial. Of course, it demands a slightly higher price, but it's still very, very good value for money.
Another feature of Canadian pork
Yep.
is that they don't use antibiotics and growth hormones.
Growth hormones, that's right. None at all. Yes, so they let the pigs grow naturally. So it takes a longer time to get there. You basically taste it in the meat.
Now it's time to try the pork. This is the pork collar.
Pork collar, yes,
Okay.
that's right.
So it's just slightly pink. That's nice.
Yes,
Yeah, well,
yeah, good. Nice and tender.
it doesn't have the ball taste.
That's right. Very clean tasting. Yeah, the grain feeding and everything. It's very nice sweetness to it.
But loin usually very dry.
Very dry. Yeah, still juicy.
Very nice.
Tender.
The flavor, right? It's
Yeah.
what they say. Teochew people like to say very pang.
I mean, this is underrated, right? The loin. People normally have it as a pork chop. It's
Yeah.
actually the same piece, just that it's missing the rib bone. This is just
Yeah.
the boneless pork chop.
First time I'm trying
First
the
time
rib
you're
cap.
trying it.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
See the juiciness from the fat? And
Very
then
nice.
the muscle fibers are a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
That's why you get that slightly bouncy sort of texture.
Very nice. Okay. Got idea already.
Idea
Gonna
already.
make char siu with this.
Okay. You have your shoulder, you have your pork knuckle and all this. So many different cuts that we have, right? So I would say at least 10 different cuts here. We're only showing 3 of the cuts.
Well, thanks very much, Andre, for educating us on Canadian pork. All right, everyone, I'm with Trevor Sears. He's the president and CEO of Canada Pork. What makes Canadian pork so good?
So Canadian pork is it's a high quality pork, a very good tasting pork, very consistent, but really it's all about food safety, traceability, and good animal care. So we have a program, it's called the Verified Canadian Pork, and so all of our pork goes through this process. It involves proper animal care, proper transportation of the animals, proper nutrition of the animals.
I'm a fan. I've every time I see Canadian pork at the butcher, I am always very tempted to buy it because I've tasted it. It's really very flavorful.
So if you get some marbling in the meat and then you don't overcook it, don't
Yeah.
cook it too much, then
Okay.
it's a much better eating experience.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Welcome to Singapore.
Thank you. So happy to be back.
And here we are at the Angliss booth. We're going to check out some Canadian seafood, specifically Canadian lobster. Check this out. This is one big lobster. Look at that. Can you tell us why Canadian lobster?
The lobster that Angliss brought in is from this company called Clearwater. It's actually 100% natural wild caught and it's from the North Atlantic Ocean. So this Clearwater, they actually harvest when the lobster meat is full. The shell is the hardest. This is very important because hard shell lobster ensure that the quality is good, the texture is very dense, very firm.
It means a hard shell lobster is at the end of this growth stage where the meat is already all full up. The shell is very hard and therefore you're going to get a lot more lobster and not just seawater. Now we're going to get the chef to show us how to prepare a very simple lobster dish. Look at that. Here we go. The lobster is so big, the pan is too small. You can smell the crustacean aroma starting to come out. Oh, getting exciting. 这是煎给它
golden brown。
哦 golden brown
对，然后就比较有一点 crispy， 然后里面是 soft。对。
Lobster! A few things in the world that you get really excited about. One thing is lobster. This is Canadian lobster that's wild caught and they've looked after the whole value chain so that you get a nice meaty lobster that is fresh, healthy, kicking. Here we go. It's a really, really good, meaty, sweet tasting lobster. So next time you're looking for lobster, make sure you check out Canadian lobster, okay? Now we're going to look for some oysters. Okay, I'm with Brian Yip, and Brian Yip's from Canada. He's going to tell us about Fanny Bay oysters.
The Fanny Bay Oysters is located in British Columbia in Canada. We are one of the fewer people that have our own hatcheries. We also have our own farms. So besides processing them, we also export them. And that makes us different being a fully vertically integrated company.
Tell us a little bit about this Fanny Bay.
Oysters is like wine. Different wine, different region. So our oysters coming from the area of the Fanny Bay called Bay Sound. People compare our oysters to, for example, Australian oysters. And our oysters are crispy because it comes from cold water.
It's a cold water, crispy, not as salty. So very easy to eat.
Very easy to eat.
Okay.
Yeah. As you can see, the meat is very good.
Oh wow, look at that. Okay. So there's still a little bit of Fanny Bay ocean water in here.
Exactly. So a lot of people are looking for that because when you eat the oysters, they say it's like kiss of the ocean. So you can actually taste the seawater from that region where the oyster comes from.
Wow. Wow.
How do you describe it?
As you say, it's very crunchy, mild, but you still get that oystery flavor, right?
Yeah.
Mild, crispy, yeah.
That's
Exactly
why
as
it's
you
difficult to describe it. We usually tell people, try one.
Yeah, there you go. So thanks very much, Brian, for showing us your oysters. So remember next time when you're eating oysters, Fanny Bay oysters from Canada. So thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something about Canadian pork, Canadian lobsters, and now Canadian oysters. So look out for Canadian produce the next time you're out eating.